Hello, this class we are going to learn about greatest tragedy Macbeth written by William Shakespeare. This is one of the greatest plays of Shakespeare. Shakespearean tragedy Macbeth. On the outskirts of the battlefield, three witches meet and plot to encounter Macbeth. After the deed is done, then disappear. Duncan, King of Scotland, along with his sons Malcolm and Donalbain, hears reports of Macbeth's valor in battle and news that the rebel Begdenwald is slain and Norway driven back. In return for his bravery, Duncan sends a messenger to grant Macbeth the title Thane of Gauder. Macbeth and his friend and fellow soldier Banquo make their way home after the victory and encounter the three witches. Taken aback by their unearthly appearance, Macbeth and Banquo listen amused as the witches call Macbeth Thorn of Claims, then Thorn of Gauder, and future King of Scotland. Reeling from this seemingly supernatural occurrence, Macbeth and Banquo are further amused when messengers from King Duncan, Lords Ross and Angus deliver the news that Macbeth has been granted the title Town of Gauder. Macbeth contemplates Macbeth contemplates the witch's prediction and wonders if he should assist fate by doing away the King Duncan himself. Suppressing these murderous thoughts, Macbeth accompanies Rose, Angus, and Banquo to see the king. Duncan honors Macbeth and Banquo for their deeds in battle and then declares his son, Malcolm, Prince of Cumberland, the official heir to the throne. The entire party departs to intervene Macbeth's go home. Macbeth hurries ahead to prepare for their coming. Early in the morning, Macbeth and Lennox arrive to meet the king and discover his bloody body. Macbeth rushes into the chamber and kills the two sleeping guards with their daggers. In the ensuing confusion, Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's sons, flee to England and Ireland respectively. The princes' fight arouses suspicion of their guilt, and Macbeth is crowned the King of Scotland. Having achieved the throne, Macbeth begins to fear Banquo, who witnesses the witches' prophecy and who, according to them, will beget a long line of kings. Macbeth plans a great feast to which he invites Banquo, then arranges to have him and his son Filiance murdered. Banquo is killed, but Filiance escapes. At the feast, Macbeth sees the ghost of Banquo sitting at the table. The vision signifies Macbeth's already erratic behavior, and Lady Macbeth sends Lords away. Terminated by guilty and fearing for his future as king, Macbeth decided to visit the witches again. Some of the Scottish lords have begun to suspect Macbeth's involvement in the murders. Macduff travels to England to meet with Malcolm, who has been taken in the King Edward, in hopes that Edward will support Malcolm by sending an army headed by Earl of Cumberland. Upon learning of his fight, Macbeth sends murderers to surprise Macduff's castle in his absence and kills his wife and children. Rose delivers this devastating news to Macduff in England. Macduff vows to avenge his family in battle with Macbeth and return the throne to Malcolm, the rightful heir. Macbeth returns to the witches who summon a series of apparitions with three warnings. First, to behave, beware Macduff. Second, that none of the women born shall harm Macbeth. And third, that the Macbeth will never be defeated until Birnam Wood comes to Dunshans. The location of Macbeth's castle. Feeling confident that the woods will never uproot and move themselves to his home, Macbeth returns to prepare for Melgam's attack. Melgam reveals the English forces and travels to Birnam Wood, where they are met by Scottish lords who have abandoned the trident Macbeth. To hide to their number as they approach the castle, Melgam instructs the army to cut branches from the forest and ride with them in front. Macbeth is hurried when a messenger tells him that Birnam Wood appears to marching towards them. Whereas Elizabeth's portraits positively influenced public opinion of the Queen throughout her rule, James' effort to broaden his authority through the publication of his writings had neither the same control nor effect. Contrasted with Elizabeth's limited and well planned portraits into the public eye, James' writing allowed the public extended knowledge of their ruler in a way that Elizabeth never permitted. This belief led to many encounters with Parliament, who was concerned by James' lack of consideration for his affair and his extravagant disturbing of money and gifts. In response to James' excessive spending and his dissatisfaction with his rule, Parliament limited the king's fund. A key reason for his dissatisfaction was James' frequent practices of awarding peerages or landed titles. While Elizabeth had always been wary of dispensing titles and money, James awarded more than 200 peerages during his reign as a way to gain loyalty. Some critics believe Shakespeare's great tragedy Macbeth was written by royal command. Even if Shakespeare didn't receive a specific order, the play definitely aimed to please King James, evidenced by Scottish setting as well as focus on the witchcraft, a subject James explored in his own writing. 1600 to 8 was generally marked as a period during which Shakespeare wrote his great tragedy, including not only Macbeth but also Hamlet, Othello, and King Lear, which is one of the greatest tragedies. It is significant that this period occurs during the cross from the golden rule of Queen Elizabeth to troubled times of King James. It can be derived that the widespread satisfaction and problem during James' rule reveal themselves in the rise of tragedies written by not only Shakespeare but also by Andrew Webster. Scotland is a land of geographic variety, from the marshy lowlands of southern Scotland to the grassy highlands of the north. Despite Scotland's lack of agricultural viability, battles have been waged over this territory since the 1st century. Over the next few centuries, a growing rift developed between the Picts and the Scots. Their proximity to England enabled the Scots to begin to adopt English culture and language. Feudalism was developed and trade increased. In the 19th century, Scottish King Mac united the Picts and Scots under his regent. Duncan is the regent king at the start of Shakespeare's Macbeth. Through Shakespeare dramatization strays from documented Scottish history in a number of ways. The Witch in 1610, in which the leader of the witches, appears and performs two songs ordinarily found in Macbeth. Some scholars suggest that Middleton was attempting to create a musical version of Macbeth and that scene or a remnant of that. Some argue that the difficulty of playing Macbeth and the fact that it is Shakespeare's shortest tragedy prove that there were more songs and dances that have since been lost. The play first appeared in publication in the first folio of 1623, where it showed some symptoms of having already been cut and edited. James' fears of witches and the historical suggestion that the real Macbeth had in some way consulted with the supernatural during region of gave Shakespeare a great excuse to include some spectacular songs and dances to please the king. With the knowledge that this play was inspired by the masque and probably originated intended to be performed in the style before the king, it would be to play Macbeth without note to the spectacle and extravagant of Jacobean Mask, a play that includes witches, ghosts, and supernatural spirit, demand the fantasy and magical in which Shakespeare witnesses to believe.